Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are looking at the most common piercing questions on the internet. So the topic today is going to be, why are piercings so expensive? Great question. When you think about a piercing, when you think about any service, there's a lot of parts that come into it. There are so many costs that are involved in a studio. The studio obviously has to lease the building, they have to pay for the electricity, they have to pay for all of the goods, the utensils, the tools, everything, chemicals, you name it. And then they have to pay their staff as well, maintenance. There's like all these things that are involved in a company itself, in a studio, that need to be paid for. So that is a big part of where the price comes from. Even though you might think, I wasn't even there for long, it was so quick, why was it so expensive? It comes down to like a business perspective of, these are all the things that need to be paid for, and like each service needs to cost this much so that we can like keep running essentially. Most people would understand this. That's how a business works, is that you've got all these like overhead costs that need to be reflected by the cost of services and products, whatever it is, because they need to make that money back. Like they need to break even and then make money from it because it's a business. They're not just like running to like have fun. That's like where the starting point of why piercings are expensive, where it comes from. You've got the price of the jewelry, and that all depends on what type of jewelry you get as well. The thing is, it doesn't have to be super expensive though. You can get internally threaded titanium for very cheap now. It's really not an expensive type of jewelry, but your jewelry can go skyrocket in price. Like you can get some very, very, very expensive jewelry. It is high quality jewelry, but it is expensive. But that is your choice as to what jewelry you want to purchase with your piercing. Sometimes it also can depend on where you go as well, because sometimes there may only be a certain brand of jewelry that are available and you have to start at quite a high price point. So that might be another reason, depending on where you're going. Their price point for jewelry itself might be so high that it's like, that is a huge cost of your piercing. But when just talking about titanium, you can get it quite cheap. However, it also comes down to where you go. If you're a sole trader, yes, you may not have all of the overhead of like the entire studio, but you still have a lot of costs you have to pay for. You have to buy all your equipment, tools, everything that's necessary to do the job, you have to buy. You don't get provided with anything. You might get provided with a chair, that might be it. So the rest you have to provide. You have to have all those upfront costs, and then you need to get your regular customers to come in, you need to gain more customers, you need to have foot traffic, which is very hard for like a piercer doing it on their own, because you're generally in a tattoo shop and people who are going to tattoo shops really aren't going there for a piercing. And if people happen to want a piercing, they tend to ask how much it is, and they're generally turned off by the price, because the price point is quite high when you're working for yourself. You're hiring the chair, you're hiring the space, and you're paying for everything, and you're not getting paid by the hour. Yes, you might make more per piercing, but with all the rest of the costs that are involved, honestly, to me, it's not worth doing that. Like I personally would rather just work for a studio. That way, yes, you're getting paid hourly and they're obviously making so much more money off you, the studio, but like everything is covered. That's just how I prefer to have it run, just because there's just less stress that way. It's like, if someone doesn't come in this hour, I'm still getting paid. Whereas like if someone doesn't come in for half the day, they don't get paid. So if you ever go to someone who's working in a tattoo shop, you will find that their price point is probably higher than like if you were to go to like, I don't know if you have them, but like the franchises that are just everywhere. Honestly, I think we are pretty lucky here in Australia. Our piercing price point is quite low. From the sound of it, like just in the comments, people telling me the price of like pretty average piercings, different places around the world, our piercing price point is so low. I think it also has to do with the fact that we have a lot of like franchise piercing companies. I assume you'd have them overseas. I'm really not too sure actually, now that I think of it. Maybe not, but like we've got a lot of piercing franchises, and basically what that is like there's a company and they have like hundreds of stores everywhere. And because there are so many of them, they can make their piercing price point quite low. Rather than when you work for a studio that is like on its own, or you rent a space or a chair within a studio, that's where your prices have to be higher because you don't have that like constant flow of customers. So like these big franchise stores, they're like in malls and shopping centers, but I'm not talking about like a Claire's kind of vibe. You walk in, there's jewelry on the walls. You then walk through to the actual clinic where you get pierced. It's a sanitary area, there's like an auto club and like everything's set up to be a piercing clinic. Please tell me if you have those type of places. Be very interested to know. They're getting people just like walking past in a mall and they go, oh, go get a piercing. That's the kind of vibe. Whereas if you're just working in a random tattoo studio, you're just not getting that stream of customers. Even if you have a lot of regular customers, it's just really hard to make a lot of money from it. And especially if you're trying to compete with the prices of these other studios. We just have so many. There are piercing clinics in every single shopping center you walk into in Australia. There's sometimes tattoo studios in malls now as well. It's become so mainstream that like that can happen. That's definitely not where everyone wants to go and get pierced. We also have quite a lot of high-end piercing studios as well. They're just going to be a higher price point as it is. You're getting a more tailored service. The jewelry selection you have is generally huge and it is very good quality, very nice, very beautiful. So like there's benefits to that side of it as well. You're going to get treated like a queen, at least you fucking should be, for the price you're paying for it. You get different services, whereas like a mall place, you're still going to get a pretty good service, but it's just like they obviously can't spend as much time with you because they're like piercing so many people. And then if you've got a lone sole trader in like a tattoo studio, it's just like so hard to get that foot traffic. People are coming there for tattoos. They don't give a fuck about piercings. Like they don't want to come there to get a piercing. Or if they do, a lot of the time people will find out the price if you're like a piercer in a tattoo studio and they'll be like, absolutely not. I'm not paying that amount for you to do this when I could just go to one of the like franchise places and it not be the price that you're charging me. It's really hard and it seems really unfair, but that's just kind of how I guess businesses in general work. Piercings are so accessible here. We've just got so many places where you can get piercings that I guess companies just want to compete with each other. In Australia, you either go somewhere high-end or you go to like a mall piercing clinic. Literally no one ever goes to a tattoo shop to get a piercing here. And if you do, it's probably pretty fucking dodgy, to be honest. Like, I'm not talking for everywhere. Obviously, have not been into every tattoo studio in the entirety of Australia. But from the ones that I have heard of or seen, oh, you don't go in there for a piercing. Sometimes it is literally the owner of like the tattoo shop has been like, oh, we need someone to pierce, who's gonna do it? And like a tattoo artist will just like pick up the shit and start doing it. In other cases, it's like someone who's like thought they could start up their business in a tattoo shop and like be a sole trader there, and it doesn't work. Their prices are way too high for the service that they're giving, even the experience they get. Like when people are working in like the mall shops, they're pumping out so many that generally they move on then to the higher end piercing studios because they're so good because they've done so many. The franchise places are a great place to learn, that's for sure. No one here goes to tattoo shops for piercings. It's just like unheard of. You wouldn't do it because you're not going to get a good quality piercing. It just doesn't happen here, but it seems like a very common thing, like in the US, that like a lot of the time it's either a high-end full piercing studio or it's a person in a tattoo shop. Like we have it, we definitely have it, but you just wouldn't go to one of them. I just wanted to quickly add on to that I totally understand that around the world, tattoo shops can be the best place you can go. It just isn't the case in Australia. In Australia, tattoo shops are for tattooing. They are absolutely not for piercing. Let me know down below if you do have these franchise piercing stores in your country. So interested to know. Thank you so much for watching this video.